You're watching The Business of Law, the only web TV show focusing on the challenges and the opportunities in the legal profession. I'm Kent Zimmerman, and I'm very pleased to have today a real-life Silicon Valley insider joining us, Mark Stevens, partner at Fenwick & West. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Glad to be here.
So when I think about Fenwick, what I think about are some of your very well-known clients: Apple, Google, Cisco, newer companies, Uber, WhatsApp, Airbnb, the list goes on and on. But what I think some people don't know as well is how financially successful the firm has been since 2008. We've been in this period since Lehman Brothers fell, as you know, where a lot of law firms have stumbled. You hear a lot from firms about how they're trying to retool and find their way again. But in that period, Fenwick is one of a very small group of firms that significantly outperformed the market based on the data that American Lawyer reports. And so where I wanted to start is, what is driving that? What is causing Fenwick to prosper when so many firms have stumbled?
It's doing what we've been doing for the last 40 years, which is the biggest thing that drives our business is the technology industry, because that's what we do. 95% plus of our clients, and certainly 95% plus of our revenues, come from the technology industries, technology companies, technology investors, companies that have a strong technology driver to their business. And that has been, it is a very substantial part of GDP, and it's invading other parts of the gross domestic product, and as media transforms by technology, as education transforms by technology. So we've been riding that secular wave, and that focus has allowed us to have very clear direction in decisions that we make, partners that we bring on, clients that we work with, expertise areas that we build, and that has been the single largest driver for our own success.
And you mentioned something before we went on, which was that when your partners meet somebody at a cocktail party and they're asked what the firm does, everybody answers the same way. There's no confusion over what you do depending on which lawyer you're talking to. That's unusual, I find, among firms of your stature.
It's hard to get two lawyers together and have consensus view on anything, but we are blessed with a partnership that has fully bought into the strategy. The strategy has been an articulated strategy. We don't have to have asterisks next to we're a tech firm, but we do these other things too. We don't have groups of lawyers in the firm that say, hey, what about me? Make sure you include my practice in your description. So, and what that means is that, kind of the old-fashioned brand promise. The Fenwick brand stands for something that's very, very easy to articulate. Our partners carry it, our clients carry it, the influencers in the market know exactly who we are and what they get when they get a Fenwick lawyer in the room, and that ends up being a very strong part of our success.
So people could probably expect to see this laser-like focus, the choice you made on tech, continue. But at the same time, you're in this industry that's going through great change. Just a stone's throw from where we're sitting here on Wall Street, you've got some of the most profitable law firms in the world. And when I talk to chairs of some of those firms, they say we're facing this extraordinarily downward pricing pressure. They talk about the internationalization and the globalization of the industry. Of course, there's consolidation, there's segmentation, all these changes. And so with all of those changes, and in thinking about your and your partner's aspirations for the future, what does the firm look like in 5 or 10 years, ideally?
We are a law firm, and we face the same kinds of pressures that the law firms face. I think we react differently. We actually very much behave the way our clients do, and we're looking for ways to bring technology in or bring innovative business practices into the practice of law and deliver more value to our clients. So, for example, we saw a few years ago that the costs for doing a small financing were quite high. We took our standard term sheet and our standard preferred stock documents and open sourced them. We put them on the web, and if you want to do a financing, you're perfectly welcome to use our documents and never pay us a penny, never become a client. And because eliminating friction is very important for the long-term success of the industry generally, and certainly for us. Another thing we've done is we have a business called Flex, which is we saw that much of the business that used to come to the law firm 20 years ago, day-to-day licensing business, HR kind of advice, things like that, was being shunted off to sole practitioners or non-lawyers. And so we actually have what competes with Axiom, but a group of lawyers who are practicing on their own, who can come into a Fenwick client or a non-Fenwick client with a Fenwick badge and at a much lower rate on a daily basis or a monthly basis, or for somebody who's going through a 6-month leave of absence, we can replace them. And that's a terrific business, and it's growing much faster than the rest of the firm. But it's a direct response to the needs of the clients that we see.
It's almost as if you're playing the disruptors game, even though some would say that you're a part of the group that's being disrupted, but it sounds like you're keeping up with the disruptors in some way. I was reading this article by Susan Beck of AmLaw, and she talked about how increasingly machines are doing work that lawyers traditionally did, and that trend may well continue. But it sounds like that's something that you all are anticipating in your offerings.
Absolutely, because we see it every day in our clients. We represent Airbnb that's disrupting the hospitality business, Uber that's disrupting the taxi and livery service. We've been the disruptor or been working with the disruptors, and we know how damaging that can be, and we also know what the behaviors are of the incumbents that makes them vulnerable. And so, we are very much like our clients, and we will see those opportunities. So, we have very deep searching technologies that we're working with Stanford professors on to make the discovery and diligence process much more effective, and to allow you to cut out some of the, hundreds and hundreds of hours of associate time, pouring through documents. We're using technology to do automatic document generation, because you really don't need to pay a third-year associate to find all the exemplars and do the first draft. The legal work really is taking that first draft and making sure that you incorporate the right business points. And so we're trying to do those things to ourselves because we know it will be done to us by others.
So let's look forward. You as a firm, Fenwick is very widely perceived to be a leader in a number of areas. Venture capital, your roots personally are in the venture capital world. You also are a leader, obviously, in the tech sector. You've grown as a leader in other areas. You're very well known for your work in the Valley, but you've grown out of Silicon Valley, and we've talked a little bit about that. Now, as a leader, though, you also have a broader view to the tech industry. You have a sense of what the flow is on the IPO front, on the M&A front. Give me a sense of what you're seeing this year in terms of deal flow, IPOs and M&A compared to last year, and then I also wanted to get a sense of where you see things going the balance of this year into next year.
Sure. Always hard to pull out the crystal ball, but we do have a privileged, kind of insider seat to what's happening in the near term. We thought last year was going to be a year that we have a really hard time beating. We are way up over last year in terms of our level of activity. So that's being driven by a number of different business areas. IPOs are still quite strong. And we don't see a degradation in the quality of the issuers that we're working with. They're still 100 million revenue companies, profitable, strong growth prospects, or larger than that. I mean, certainly some of them are much more substantial companies than that. But we don't see the IPO pipeline starting to get cluttered with companies that have to go out or that are of lower quality. So we see a very strong pipeline, a lot of deals that are not yet announced that we will be filing through the course of the next few months. But M&A really has been driving it for us this year. The deal flow is quite strong. The transactions, many of them have been announced, deals like the Oculus deal that Facebook did, which we handled last quarter, but other major transactions, a lot more that are in the pipeline. So we see the corporate activity being very, very robust through the year. What happens in the outside market? Does Ukraine have a significant meltdown that hits the market? Those are the kinds of things that could affect the IPO market and valuations in M&A, but certainly the internal dynamics are very, very healthy.
Do you see particular hotspots within subsectors of tech?
Definitely, we see emerging areas. So the wearables area, for example, Many companies are building around Google Glass or the equivalent. Our client GoPro that just went public is arguably a wearables company. Fitbit, another company that we work with. The whole concept of combining the Internet of Things, the connectivity that hardware can have with a real device. So it's not a ephemeral stream of bits. It really is something that you can distribute and buy, and as a bill of materials. We're seeing many more companies in the wearable space. Digital health is another area. We've got a couple of partners who have built very substantial practices focusing on digital health, which is really the intersection of everything that's been going on the internet and software with the healthcare marketplace. And there's explosive opportunity in the digital health space.
Something you mentioned earlier when we talked about the firm's strategy and what Fenwick looks like over time, you mentioned in the green room before we went on, you said Fenwick doesn't have a geographic strategy by design. Right. Tell me a little bit more about that, because the reason why I ask is many firms think about geography. They think we need to be in Shanghai and we've got to open in this city and that city. That's not the way Fenwick thinks. Tell us why that is.
It goes back to the technology strategy. We have a very well articulated, for a law firm, strategy in around the technology space. And it's not just we're a tech firm. We have in the sub-industries what we're planning on doing, where the growth is happening, what expertise areas that we need to have. And we are entirely responsive to the industries in terms of our own planning. So for example, we have a Seattle office, very successful. It was driven by our desire to service the life sciences businesses, and we found a very strong group of attorneys in Seattle. We didn't have any designs to be in Seattle. It's a terrific tech marketplace, but it's not someplace that we felt that we needed to be. But we found a team that served an area and served a client need that we had, and so that became a move. One of the things that we worry about is, what's the paradigm going to be in the future? Can you, if we're one of the premier technology firms in the world, can you do that from two offices 35 miles apart in Silicon Valley? Or do you need to be physically present in Manhattan or in Los Angeles? Certainly there's a lot of regions that you can rule out, but the Silicon Valley may not be as dominant in the future, and what does that spell for us? And we worry about that a lot. We want to make sure that we're thinking ahead of where we need to be in our strategy.
So do you look at markets like New York when you think about the future?
I think you can't help but look at New York. New York has got an amazing ecosystem. There's a lot of good stuff going on here. There's tremendous talent, particularly in fintech, but also in ad tech. The media businesses have spawned a number of really strong companies, starting with the DoubleClicks and companies from the old Flatiron days during the bubble, but also other companies. I'm in New York on a monthly basis working with clients. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. And the question is it going to be served by people who are here or people who have the industry expertise from the Valley? That's an open question.
Mark, thanks for coming in.
All right, thank you very much.
I'm Kent Zimmerman. You've been watching The Business of Law. For more information, check us out online. Thank you very much.